Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Morning Mindset. I hope you're here ready to get your mind aligned with the truth of God. If you're new to the Morning Mindset, you may not realize this is an international broadcast. We have listeners all over the world, in Spain, in Turkey, in Mongolia, in South Africa, in Gabon, in Colombia, and yes, here in the United States. That's where I'm broadcasting from. We have believers in Christ all over the world who are listening to this podcast. And I want to welcome you all. I want to encourage you all. You're doing the right thing. You're doing the work to get your mind aligned with the truth of God. And in doing so, you're expressing your devotion to Jesus. I want to encourage you, don't let it end here. Carry it throughout your day. Let the thoughts you are able to think on during this 6 minutes we're together carry you and guide you in the way you think and interact and love people today. All right, we're diving back into Acts chapter 5. And we have kind of a summary paragraph here that we're going to read and just stop and talk about because it brings up a question that I get quite often. Now let's read the passage first. This is Acts chapter 5, verses 12 through 16. It says, "Now many signs and wonders were regularly done among the people by the hands of the apostles, and they were all together in Solomon's portico. None of the rest dared join them, but the people held them in high esteem. And more than ever, believers were added to the Lord, multitudes of both men and women, so that they even carried out the sick into the streets and laid them on cots and mats, that as Peter came by, at least his shadow might fall on some of them. The people also gathered from the towns around Jerusalem, bringing the sick and those afflicted with unclean spirits, and they were all healed." Now, the question that a statement like this, a paragraph like this, brings to mind is, man, if those kinds of signs and wonders and miracles were regularly done during that day when the church was first getting off the ground, where has all that gone? Why don't we see that as often? Well, I think, first of all, the question is framed in a context of some sort, which tells us a little bit of the answer. What I mean by that is many times I hear that from people who live in the Western world. And they're viewing the situation from their own perspective, which is totally natural. And by doing so, they don't realize in other parts of the world, these sorts of things are happening in regular ways. In some of the African countries, in some of the Asian countries, we see situations like this. Some of the Middle Eastern countries, we see situations where people are healed, where visions of Jesus are happening, where various miracles are occurring. And we just don't hear about it in the press like you hear about everything else. Because in our Western world, that kind of stuff is kind of poo-pooed. And people just don't want to even address it or talk about it. But friends, it is happening in different parts of the world. But even that explanation begs the question, well, why isn't it happening here in the United States? And to be real honest with you, friends, I'm not sure I have a great answer for that. I have some thoughts. I think sometimes our faith limits what we see occur. Now, I know in my own life, not that I'm a champion of the faith, but I know in my own life, I have seen some healings happen. I've seen things happen that I can't explain any other way. One of those is when my wife was healed of a heart block, an issue with the electrical system in her heart. And the doctors all just scratched their head. They didn't understand how this could happen, that a 23-year-old woman could just come out of a heart block. But it happened. And it was because many of us were trusting, many of us were praying that God would get the glory and would bring about that healing. I remember a man in one of our home churches at one time. He had a blood clot in his leg, and we came to the hospital and we prayed over him and we touched his leg and we asked for healing, and that blood clot vanished. The doctors could not find it. So I know these things do happen, but we don't see them as regularly. And why is that? I'm not exactly sure, but here's what I do know, friends. As we honor the Lord with our faith and we trust Him to do great things, He delights to not only meet our expectations many times, but to even outdo them. He likes to show off. Not in a bad way because He has no ego, but He likes to demonstrate His power and His glory because He knows it gets the attention of unbelievers. And it even gets the attention of His followers to honor Him and fear Him more. And that's what we want. And so I would encourage you, as you think about these kinds of things, don't think about them with skepticism. Think about them with a hopeful optimism that perhaps as we seek the Lord and we trust Him to do what He knows is best in any given situation, we may see Him honor our faith and do even more of the kinds of things that we read about in passages like this. Jesus, please open our eyes to see the situations in which you want us to be praying for these kinds of miracles, in which you want us to participate and see your people healed, to see others brought to faith in you through some miraculous sign that's done. We ask you, Jesus, to bring it about in your name, by your blood, and for your glory. Jesus, give us eyes to see it and to glorify you for it.